There's been decades of studying what actually makes someone engaged at work. And the recent research by Gallup has listed off 12 different questions that individuals need to ask themselves to help test this engagement. And 2 of those 12 questions were, in the last 6 months, has someone talked to me at work about my progress? And the second question is, there's someone at work who encourages my development? Now, they're not throwaway questions. They are questions really we should expect leaders to be asking in their one-to-ones. However, we also know that is not the case. These 2 questions are the strongest predictors whether or not someone stays engaged. And when someone stays engaged, they stay. And when they stay, we retain the high-performing staff. And that is what we want as leaders. If we haven't met before, I'm Zoe Thompson. I'm a leadership and performance coach. I truly believe that the best leaders go home on time and they're able to take a week off, 0 work, 0 stress, and 0 guilt, because they've got a self-sufficient team. They've got systems and processes in place that means everything can run in their absence. That to me is the measure of a good leader. That's what I help my clients with. And that's what these videos talk about, to help you to think about how you can change your approach to be a better leader with better balance. Most leaders have one-to-ones scheduled into their diary. They might be different frequency. I know some leaders have them every other week, some have them monthly. But the one-to-ones and protecting the time for one-to-ones is incredibly important. That's the first thing. Secondly, we need to make sure that when we're in those one-to-ones, we are maximizing the time and we are giving people that space to engage, to be able to have a 2-way conversation. One-to-ones should not be one way. They should be a 2-way conversation. I did a workshop recently, and one of the questions that came up really kind of is at the heart of what we're talking about here. I was asked the question, who should set the agenda for a one-to-one? Should the team manager set it, or should the team member set it? And who gets to shape it? So even when there's an agenda, who takes the lead? Who shapes how those one-to-ones take place? And the question is about ownership, and it's a good starting point to talk about what makes a one-to-one really work and where they fall short, because we know staff surveys often reveal that people's one-to-ones are not as effective as perhaps leaders think they are. And we do need to adapt them. We need to understand that the people that we're speaking to are individuals, and that actually the way that we hold our one-to-ones may be different for different people. But we need to remember that our one-to-ones with individuals is their time too. It's not just yours to clarify status updates, project updates, task updates. It's their half an hour or an hour with you to talk through what's important to them. This is why it's really important that it's a 2-way conversation. Remember, is that this is their time, not just yours. You might set the agenda in terms of how you want to shape that time. It's really important that they get to shape what they talk about in that meeting. Otherwise, if you're asking them questions and they're passively sitting there waiting to receive updates or waiting for you to ask them questions, then it's not always going to be best use of their time. It's really important not just to set an agenda, but really set the expectations and make it clear on what it is that you want them to bring to the one-to-ones, to make sure that they shape it for what they need in that time with you. There's a question that I share with all of the clients that I work with, and I need to give the credit to Marshall Goldsmith. It's not my question. Marshall Goldsmith is an American leadership coach. This is one of his questions. And his recommendation is that leaders ask the same question at the end of every one-to-one. And that question is, what can I do differently to be a better leader for you? Now, I think this is a fantastic question. It's forward-focused. It's solution-focused, so it makes it much easier for the individual sitting in front of you to give you an honest answer. It also recognizes that everybody in your team is an individual and they're going to want a different approach in terms of your leadership to get the best out of them. So by asking the question, what can I do differently? That means that you are taking ownership for your leadership approach. The second part of it, to be a better leader for you. recognizes that they are an individual and that they may want you to lead them differently to perhaps how they do with the person that they sit next to in the office. Your team is full of individuals, and each individual has a different communication style. They have a different approach. They have different values. They have different needs. And so whilst you can be very clear on your expectations and your standards and where you want people to perform, how they do that will be very individual to them, and how you lead them to be able to achieve that will also be very individual to them. Now, the chances are the first couple of times you ask that question, you may not get an answer. The important thing is that you get into that rhythm of asking them that question in every one-to-one so that they know it's coming. We need to create that psychological safety. We need to build the trust. We need to build that rapport before individuals probably feel comfortable or confident enough to answer openly. The more we ask, and the more we ask routinely, and the more we share that, okay, we might not have had an answer in the last 2 one-to-ones, but we're still asking because this is important to us, the more we keep that feedback loop open. And over time, the more we build the trust and the rapport and that relationship builds, the more likely we are to get that honest response. And the important thing is when we do get that honest response, that we engage with that, we listen, we don't get defensive, and then we then look to adapt our approach so that they know they can come to us, they can share something with us without judgment, without criticism, without us getting defensive, and that we are open to changing how we lead to support them. It is probably worth noting here that you will have some individuals who will be very comfortable in giving you feedback, in asking for feedback, in wanting that feedback loop to be continuous and to be informal. And then you will have others who will not be as comfortable and who may need a little bit more time to be able to build up that comfort, to be able to answer those questions honestly. And that's okay. Again, that's part of dealing with different individuals in your team and still working to get the best out of them in a way that works for them as well. One of the things I love to do when I got a new team member is to ask them for the manual of how to get the best out of them. I mean, it would be great, wouldn't it, if we got a new member of staff and it came with a nice thick book that says, this is how to get the best out of me. This is how I like to communicate. These are the tasks I love doing. This is what I don't like doing. This is what good looks like. This is what I look like when I'm happy and engaged and fulfilled. This is what it looks like when I'm stressed, when I'm struggling, when I'm under pressure, when I'm overwhelmed. I mean, wouldn't that be great if we just had this manual that came with an individual in the same way as we get one when we get new technology? We don't get that. So what we have to do is ask the questions. Rather than going through this by trial and error, which is what a lot of leaders do, what we want to do is sit down with that individual in that neutral space, keep it light, keep it informal, but say, okay, what does the manual say? How do I get the best out of you? What does good look like? What does not good look like? And if I think you're struggling, how do you want me to raise that with you? Do you want me to just be really clear, direct, and just get to the point? Or do you want me to be more nurturing and approach it more sensitively? Do you want me to keep asking? Do you want me to tell you what I see? How do you want me to approach it? Ask the question, and ask it when you're in a neutral state, when it's friendly, when it's welcoming. Let them know up front that you want this openness, you want this transparency in how you want to work with them. It becomes much more difficult, much more complicated if you are trying to have these conversations once there is an indication of a problem. We don't want to leave that too late. But we can do this around the tasks as well. You know, what tasks would you bite my hand off? What task would you probably leave until the last minute? You can have these conversations as a team building activity. It does work well in those individual one-to-ones and at those very early stages. A good one-to-one has a mix of both the tactical and the personal. With the tactical, we do want to be talking about what is working, what do they need help with, what's slowing them down, what's getting them in their way, what specifically do they need you to know about. But we also need to cover the personal, the things that matter to them as an individual, their personal development, anything they want to work on. With the tactical, from my point of view, I think it's really important that this is anything that requires a two-way conversation. One-to-ones are not really for providing updates that could be provided via email or Slack or the systems and software that you have to keep people updated. It needs to be the updates or the challenges that are best talked through and resolved through conversation. If it's a one-way update, it doesn't need to be in the one-to-one. There's other better, more efficient ways of doing that. So use those tactical updates for the things that need discussion, need a conversation that is going to be helpful for you to bounce it around in the room. And with the personal development, you can ask questions around short term, medium term, and long term. So you can say, we've got a one-to-one in a month's time. What do you want to work on over the next month? And then what support do you need from me to help you to do that? Understanding what their knowledge gap, skills gaps, or action gaps are, and asking those questions in the one-to-ones can really help, because you'll understand where they are now, where they are trying to get to, but also where you see them now and where you think they can get to in terms of where you think their potential is. And identifying in those conversations the knowledge, skills, and action gaps that will bridge that gap from where they are to where they want to be. Remember, you might see them over here, but actually they want to be over here. So it's really important to check in, not what you think is a good opportunity for them or where you think they need to be going, but check in that you do really understand what it is they want and where they're trying to get to. Sometimes there'll be a conversation that actually you might want to influence that decision, but we do need to respect that actually just because we think they can doesn't necessarily mean that they will want to. And the more that we understand that, the better. I have mentioned this before, but I am going to mention it again because it's incredibly important. And if you haven't seen me talk about this in other videos, then I want to make sure that you catch it in this one. There are 3 things that every team member needs to know, and this is key to their engagement and it's key to them staying in the role that they are in. People leave when they're disengaged. They leave when they don't feel valued. And so these are the 3 things that you need to make sure are being covered in your one-to-ones to make sure that your team member is very clear on this when they leave every single one-to-one. Now, you might cover this in between. If you can cover it in your one-to-ones as well, you know that they are very clear on these 3 things. So what are these 3 things? First one, they need to know that you value them as an individual. Before they do any work, before tasks or activities are completed, they need to know that you value them as an individual, their character, their attributes, what they bring to the table. Secondly, they need to know that their work is valued, that they know that what they contribute is significant and feeds into the bigger picture. And thirdly, they need to know that there is a development or progression pathway. Now, there may not be promotion opportunities. There may not be the movement in your organization that allows them to move up. There may well be lots of different opportunities for them to develop within the role that they are in. They need to know what that progression or pathway looks like. And this is where those 2 questions that I mentioned at the beginning of this video come into play. We need to be asking questions and we need to be sharing this information so that they are very clear. They are valued, their work is valued, there are opportunities available to them. I mean, it's interesting to me that despite one-to-ones probably being one of the most important things you do as a leader, very rarely covered on leadership courses. And it requires human-to-human interaction. There's going to be a lot of human psychology that comes into play here, but we don't cover this on a lot of leadership courses. So most leaders are trying, they're doing the best they can with the skills that they have and the knowledge that they have, that they don't always have a framework to follow to be able to do that. Now, one-to-ones are important. Firstly, do not move them, do not delete them, do not postpone them unless you have no other choice, because the message that sends is that you do not value that individual. And as we have already been talking about, that's incredibly important. And that might not be your intention. I appreciate that. Sometimes it is unavoidable, and I appreciate that as well. However, before you do have to do it, that you need to think about the message that is received rather than the message that you're trying to send. And so think about how you communicate that. Make sure that you communicate that in a way that helps them to understand that this was unavoidable, rather than this is just something that is very easy to move. Most leaders genuinely want to do right by their team. It's why they've gone into leadership. It is a lot of trial and error. And I always say to clients when we talk about this, it is like early dating or early friendships. When we're trying to build a new relationship, it can be a lot of trial and error in what works and what doesn't work. The more you are curious, the more you ask questions, the more you give them that safe space to be able to share what's important to them and how they like to approach things, the more you will be able to work out what to say, what not to say, and how to manage those conversations. But remember, you are offering up that time and space for them. You are protecting that time and space for them, but you are also making sure that they understand this is their time, their space, and that this is for them to also set the agenda with you to make sure they get what they want out of those conversations. And you can contract them in the same way that I contract coaching sessions. What do you want to focus on today? What do you want to walk away with at the end of our time together? A contract at the beginning is a great way to open up that conversation. Check in with how they're feeling. Check in with how they are. Check that they are okay to have this conversation today. And then ask them, what do you want to focus on and what do you want to walk away with? And don't forget the Marshall Goldsmith question at the end. What can I do differently to be a better leader for you? So before you close out this video, I want you to go back to those 2 questions that I asked you at the beginning, and I'll pop them up on the screen here so that you don't need to scroll back. Go back to those questions. Go through every member of your team and check in. Have you talked to them about their progress? Have you been actively encouraging their development? And if you are not confident that the answer is yes, then make sure that you set those 2 questions into your next one-to-one. Add in the Marshall Goldsmith question, and that is your 3 questions for your next one-to-one. Before your next one-to-ones with your team, make sure that you are contacting them and asking them to think in advance what they want to talk about in their time with you, so that you are setting them up to have a positive and successful, whatever that looks like, conversation when they come to see you. And don't forget, when you finish up those one-to-ones, when you wrap up that conversation, you are checking in. Do they feel valued? Do they feel that their work is valued? And have they had that conversation around their development? 3 questions to ask after the one-to-one, and that should put you in a pretty good position to really elevate the one-to-ones that you have with your team. As always, if you've got any questions, you are very welcome to message me and ask. I will be very happy to answer. There are lots of videos talking about different leadership challenges and different tools, tips, frameworks to help you to manage those challenges. If you have a specific challenge and you're looking for a video and can't find it, pop me a message. I'd be happy to share with you. We've also got the blogs and we've also got the weekly podcast as well. So every Monday, there's a short 15 to 20 minute podcast where I talk through some of the things that have been coming up through my work with clients that will help you to be a better leader with better balance. And if you want more, the doors are open for the leadership community. You'd be very welcome to come and join us. We have a monthly workshop, so we tackle topics like this in more detail. There's also a group coaching call, as well as the resource library of all of the content that has been delivered previously. So we've got the leadership community, and we've also got leadership programs dependent on where you are in your leadership journey. So if you want to talk about those and one-to-one coaching, pop me a message, or if you head to the website, you can book in a call and we can have a conversation to see what would be a good fit for you and where you currently are. That's it from me for this video. Don't forget to subscribe so you get the notifications of when new videos are released. And I'll be back again soon with another video for you.